Tomorrow never knows, but yesterday knows all about. And I don't have many Beatles albums in my record collection. I think I have 2 or 3 only. And I recently found this album, Revolver, in my collection, which was an album I didn't know I had. So I was looking at it, and I noticed a lot of great things about it. I wanted to examine the cover here. And this album came out in 1966. It was, and it still is, a very popular album. The cover was drawn and designed by a friend of the Beatles, Klaus Voormann, and it's an interesting cover. Here are some illustrated examples of the Beatles themselves here. Large format. It looks like the eye areas are cut out and placed here on the drawings. They're very stylized, very nice. And then you get to these little areas here where there's very little tiny pictures of the Beatles. Here's Ringo and John, very tiny pictures. Here's a very tiny John Lennon sitting on his own ear. Here is another area where there are some very tiny Beatles here. There's looks like Paul, very small. John, George again. Ringo, very small. John, and a very small Paul McCartney right here. Here are some extremely small drawings of the Beatles. Looks like Ringo here. George, perhaps Paul McCartney, perhaps John Lennon. Here are some also very small pictures of the Beatles, Ringo and John. And we get into this wider area where there are many small illustrated examples. Some of these images are cut out, looks like, from other photographs and placed here, but they're very small illustrated examples of the Beatles here. There's John. I don't know who that is or that. I'm not sure who this is. There's George. There's Paul with his mouth open. Ringo. Way back here there are still even some more drawings of very small Beatles. There's John Lennon, George, and Paul McCartney. And probably the smallest little drawing on the album cover is this picture of George in Paul's ear here. And I think I missed Ringo up here. A very small Ringo. And that's it. That's the Beatles' Revolver album cover on Heavenly Album Covers.